A ton of Democratic Party influencers were just exposed for taking dark money in order to spread neoliberal propaganda. And after it was revealed which content creators was paid by Democrat dark money, my first response was, they might as well lit that money on fire. The Democratic Party paid $8,000 per month to this person to help them bring young men back into the Democratic Party. No wonder you motherfuckers lost.
So it looks like the psychotic leftists are all fighting each other yet again, because today we got to bring you coverage of the scandal that has torn apart the online left wing after it was revealed, as you can see here, that a Democrat dark money group was secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers, which some of you people may be familiar with. Implicated in this story include characters who are very famous, some of the largest liberal YouTubers on this app, like David Pakman and Tyler Cohen, who are both, frankly, dishonest, obnoxious individuals that we respond to here on a regular basis because they really do put out some of the stupidest comments ever. But what if I told you that apparently Democrat dark money was funding these characters, right? You could say in an indirect sense, and I want to be clear, indirect through covert channels, not directly, but it is basically here in a sense what is happening. The Democrat Party is funding these people. Now, it's very ironic, first of all, that this story was not broken by some right-wing person. It was actually reported by Taylor Lorenz, who herself is a very psychotic leftist. Frankly, I venture to guess that she's probably just jealous that she is not receiving the same money. But this does also show, first of all, not only just the left-wing infighting, because there's a lot of irony here to be spoken about, but secondly, the way in which perhaps some of the constant content, especially as I'll point out here, the Gavin Newsom presidential campaign, and I'll explain why in a second, is kind of being astroturfed. Now, let me be clear about this, right? When it comes to, say, people receiving investment money or donor money or all of these things, I don't inherently have a problem with people getting paid for their work. It's obviously a free country, right? To be clear, I'm not on any RNC payroll. I especially here do not receive any recurring $8,000 check to defend the Republicans or something like that. We do receive individual sponsorships and campaigns sometimes on this channel, and you guys have seen those. But I think the real conflict of interest comes when the money is a conflict of interest with your actual values, right? Essentially, you're either getting paid to say or promote something that you don't believe, or you're sort of changing your tone, changing your rhetoric because you're scared of offending, whether that's some type of sponsor or in this case, Democrat donors who apparently are, connected to high powers of influence within the Democrat Party. Essentially, as I'm going to lay out today, the real problem here is that these two characters in particular, right, because there's other people on the list that you never heard of, but Tyler Cohen and David Pakman, who, as you can see right here, both identify as progressives, have essentially been bought out by the Democratic establishment, whether that's direct or indirect, because they're going to go here and claim that, oh, well, they're giving us money, but they're not telling us what we have to say. It doesn't matter. It's very clear by the things they're promoting, by the fact, by the way, they are currently two of the biggest indirect surrogates for the Gavin Newsom presidential campaign, that essentially what has happened is these so-called progressives have been completely taken over and compromised by the Democrat establishment. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But isn't it just so ironic how all of these supposed independent progressives, right, these grassroots progressives, which market themselves so much as such, are, first of all, not independent or grassroots. These people are already pretty wealthy, much wealthier than me, doing very well for themselves, and apparently just receiving free checks to make their content. But on top of that, you look in their content and notice, okay, it's liberal, it's Democrat, but I thought you said you're a progressive, but you never even promote the anti-establishment figures within the Democrat Party. Isn't that so interesting? So that said, guys, in today's video, I want to bring you the full story here on apparently what is going on the online left wing, again, being funded by a lot of dark money. Very interesting, right? So that said, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing is not only the best way to support our videos, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage coverage. And with that said, let's get into this story. As you can see, right, a dark money group is paying pro-Dem influencers up to $8,000 a month per a report. So let's see. A secretive dark money group tied to the Democrat Party is paying online influencers up to $8,000 a month directly to disseminate left-leaning talking points, according to a report. So that's very interesting. Now, that said, I want to also be clear. The Democrats are arguably maybe smart for doing this, right? It's like a form of advertising, by the way. Obviously, if these people are saying things they would be saying anywhere, they actually believe, I guess that's fine. But as you'll see, my gripe is that doesn't seem to be the case, right? You have people who are actually compromised by this group, who are turning on the values they claim to express and basically acting as a form of controlled opposition for the so-called progressive anti-establishment wing of the Democrat base. Now, that said, I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't support the Democrat establishment or the progressives, but that's when we look at specifically Pakman and Tyler Cohen, that these people don't really seem all that sincere. But that said, let us go on here to explain. So the Chorus Creator Incubator Program is said to be funded by the 1630 Fund, a nonprofit sometimes portrayed as the left's answer to the Koch network, which has funneled money to dozens of Democrat-friendly influencers, according to Wired magazine. So as you can see, the names attached to the program span some of the most recognizable liberal voices online. This includes Olivia Julianna. Anyone recognize her? Yeah, she's pretty infamous for making a pretty ironic and lacking of self-aware statement at the DNC, but we won't get into that. The Gen Z activist who spoke at the 2024 DNC and apparently a former Playboy executive turned Democrat, Occupy Democrats YouTuber, all of these people. But notably here, right, here is the kind of story on what was going on specifically. So each of them and many more were brought into communication with Chorus, the nonprofit arm of a for-profit influencer agency, to take part in the program. Okay. The 1630 Fund told the Post that it is a, quote, fiscal sponsor of Chorus and that the group receives donations on Chorus's behalf and provides operational and administrative support for Chorus, stating it's not the original source of financing. So yeah, a lot of like weird dark money stuff going on. Who knows if it's legal or not? I'm not here to comment on that. But here is where the situation gets very, very problematic. So in all, Chorus told participants that more than 90 influencers were expected to join. The arrangement, first of all, was cloaked in secrecy. Contracts reviewed by Wired barred creators from publicly acknowledging the program, disclosing the identity of any funder, or even admitting that they were being paid at all, the publication reported. It goes on, though, actually. So a breach could mean expulsion from the program and the loss of thousands in monthly income, according to Wired. So maybe that's just NDA stuff. I don't know, right? But here's where it really gets shady. One clause reportedly gave Chorus unilateral authority to demand creators take down content produced at its events, okay? And here's where my point really rings home. Another one here required influencers to route any dealings with politicians through the organization, effectively turning Chorus into a gatekeeper between Democratic politicians and their online supporters, according to Wired. So essentially, right, what this group is offering, as you've seen, by the way, out of many of the people on this list, hey, we'll get you influence with high-profile Democrat politicians, Gavin Newsom especially, because I don't know if you notice a trend. Newsom has been interviewed by many of these creators. Tyler Cohen, as we'll show you in a second, is interviewing him like every couple of weeks. Olivia Julianna, the first person on that list, also recently interviewed Newsom. So essentially here, what is going on is, look, you're in our little program, it's veiled in secrecy and all these things, but stay in line, play our game, and we'll keep giving you influence to power, right, to these high-profile Democrat politicians. That's where, of course, the compromising comes from. And by the way, why I think, as we'll explain in a second, you never see some of these so-called progressives really offer any significant criticism of the Democrat Party and specifically Democrat leadership, which is supposed to be their brand, right? We're independent, we're grassroots, we're anti-establishment. By the way, if people want to make accusations about me, you can go on this channel right now and you can see actually my top pinned video. The most viewed video on my channel in its whole history is a video criticizing Tom Tillis and Republican establishment senators, right? So we have no problem here calling out rhinos, calling out Republicans we disagree with, saying things that we believe the GOP or its leadership structure gets wrong. I've never been invited to, most of these like high profile Republican events or whatever, right? I've never been to Mar-a-Lago, any of these things. That's not my end. That's not my goal. Frankly, probably the criticisms I've levied of Republicans throughout the years have denied me perhaps opportunities to either make money or gain influence, but that's not what it's about, right? I'm here to say what I think. And, I don't care if people receive money. I don't care if people get paid. We all get paid for things, right? It's a matter of, are you using or allowing the money or the contracts here to compromise the things that you want to say or you truly believe? So as we'll go on here, I believe that truly here to be the case. Again, the establishment basically bought these people. So, you see a lot of the characters here. People are raising potential FEC concerns. I don't know. I'm not here to comment on the legal aspect of all of this, right? I'm not an expert on that. But here is where it gets really interesting. So Don Hyder, head of Santa Clara University's Center for Applied Ethics, was even blunter. Quote, if the contract says you can't disclose it, then that's pretty simple. You can't take the money. If the money was hard to resist, apparently, in addition to the $8,000 a month amplifier tier, some creators were getting smaller stipends, around $250 a month, to be part of what Chorus described as a larger incubator, according to Wired. And what are these people getting paid for? I mean, no one's really exactly sure. But anyways, you basically get the idea there. Now, again, okay, people note here, by the way, the RNC has some similar structures. Yeah, I don't have inherently a problem with, say, influencer advertising or, the power structures on a political side trying to promote the people in their own media, okay? I never had the fortune of receiving some type of investor or donor to start this channel, okay? It truly was grassroots. We started it ourselves, as people know. But yeah, I mean, Fox News, Daily Wire, Blaze TV, these people have shareholders, investors, all. Yes, it's a capitalist society. We understand that. But as I'll show you in a second here is my problem. So first and foremost, we have David Pakman, who again, markets his show as one of the most watched independent progressive programs in the country. Well, first of all, independent, little questionable already reading this article, but that's what he claims. Secondly, though, progressive. Okay. So again, I asked a question here, and you just go look at their content, by the way. When is the last time that David Pakman, first of all, even promoted really a progressive person, right? You see here, right? Gavin Newsom. It's a lot of Gavin Newsom and, anti-Donald Trump content that the whole left can agree on. But you claim you're a progressive. Where is the progressivism here? This is just normal, like mainstream Democrat stuff. But that's what he's claiming and marketing himself as, right? Here is another prime example. So we have Tyler Cohen, who similarly calls himself one of the most viewed independent progressive political hosts on YouTube. And yet, if you're not familiar, Tyler Cohen has basically been like an online surrogate for Gavin Newsom. And let me just show you, right? Let's just do a basic Twitter search. As you can see, in July, he's interviewing Newsom. In June, he was interviewing Newsom. In June, again, he was interviewing Newsom, right? I believe even this month he also did a new, August 15th. He's doing every couple of weeks. This guy's interviewing Newsom, clearly promoting him, clearly, marketing this guy and trying to get in for 2028 and all that stuff. Except the basic issue is what? You claim to be a progressive. And say what you will about Gavin Newsom, but it is well established that he is the Democrat establishment pick for 2028. He represents the mainstream establishment wing of the party. And yet that's who this self-identified progressive keeps promoting, right? You would think if you're a progressive, shouldn't you be promoting AOC? Shouldn't you be promoting Bernie Sanders, right? Shouldn't you be offering criticisms of Democrat leadership other than just like praising Newsom all the freaking time? See, that there is my argument. That there is my problem with this, okay? Is yes, the fact that the establishment basically bought these people. And look, as we'll show you here in a second, they're about to make the argument that, look, we're just funding left-wing media. People need funding. They're not telling us what to say. And I don't know whether or not, right, it's a direct thing where they're saying you can't say this or whatever. But I think what is clear here, what is established, is that the influence of this organization, the influence of the donors, likely has to be steering the type of content these people are pushing out, which is to say, even if there's not a direct, you can't say this, or that, they're clearly walking on eggshells, and they're clearly promoting majority establishment friendly Democrats instead of claiming what they are, which is independent progressives. For instance, take a listen to the response here of David Pakman, who says, quote, "The left needs to fund independent creators the way the right does," which, first of all, is kind of a misnomer. I mean, I don't know what's going on the right wing that's equivalent to this. $8,000 a month, right? We get paid to promote sponsorships sometimes. So $8,000 a month? What are you... That's and by the way, this person's gonna still, as we'll show you in a second, claim to be some like poor working class grassroots activist. But anyways, take a listen here to his response to the scandal.
It's for years I've been saying the left needs to organize independent media in the way that the right has been doing. The left needs to fund independent creators the way that the right does. The right has won even arguably presidential elections because they're organized with regard to online and independent media. They're killing us. We've been so behind. And this kind of support for creators is exactly what I've been advocating for.
Okay, well, first of all, I don't think this guy actually understands how funding in right-wing media works. Like, most of our money is made from our audiences, right? Well, most of our audiences are just built up by us making content. I don't know. Apparently, these people have the idea that all these right-wing shows were just, set up by the Koch brothers or Miriam Adelson or Elon Musk or something. No, that's not what's happening. But anyways, okay, fair enough. Again, I understand what he's trying to say, right? But do you understand, first of all, what the word independent means in independent media? That means it's, guess what, independent. Like, the appeal of the so-called right-wing or independent media is that these are just like normal people talking, right? These are not news hosts on TV reading a script, right? I don't have a script in any of the videos. This is not, some Democrat or Republican surrogate spewing party talking points. It's just us giving our thoughts. That's first of all. And then, secondly, when it comes to this idea of the independence, as I again made the argument with primarily on this Gavin Newsom stuff, because again, he is not a progressive pick for 2028. He's the establishment pick. You guys are all over him. You're all fawning, right? Where's the AOC promotion? By the way, it's worth noting, if you read the comment section on many of these people's videos, a massive criticism coming from the progressive side, because obviously it's an issue they care a lot about, is you say, again, you're a progressive, but they never talk about Gaza, right? They never talk about the Palestine stuff. And by the way, look at their content, right? You can see little to no mention ever of the Israel-Gaza stuff that the progressives are super passionate about, right? It's one of their top issues. You see the top so-called quote-unquote progressive people never talk about it. Why is that? Well, because obviously the issue is divisive among the Democrat Party. The progressives are super anti-Israel, but the more Democrat establishment is still pro-Israel. And what essentially is going on here? It seems clear to me, right? David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, these two individuals who are on the list in particular, seem that they're curating their content to either appease or not piss off the Democrat establishment. And that's the problem. And by the way, that's making the same exact mistake that to the point where you guys don't even understand independent media. Because people respect independent media because it's independent, right? We just speak what we believe, right? We're willing to call out, for instance, our own party or stuff. Whereas, you'll never see really serious criticisms of Democrat leadership on these channels, right? You might hear them say, "Oh, the Democrat establishment needs to fight better, and we need to fight, and we need to organize better," and all this stuff. But will they directly go after Democrat politicians who, according to them, they're progressives, they should oppose, the centrists, the moderates? No, you don't see that, because again, these people are compromised in some sense or another. So here's what I said about Brian Tyler Cohen, who puts out this similar video basically explaining, we're taking money, but it's not compromising our beliefs. So I said here, right, as someone who doesn't take a monthly RNC paycheck, okay, I'm, if the RNC wants to, then let's talk. Just kidding. No, but in all seriousness, so my response here is that I don't care if Democrat money is funding you, but you're a self-identified progressive who now constantly shills Gavin Newsom, and by the way, carried massive water for Kamala Harris. This is another key thing to remember. If you go watch Pakman and Cohen specifically, all of their content from 2024. Kamala's gonna win, right? Pakman, we did that video mocking him because he was heavily into JN Seltzer, all this stuff. Whereas some other progressive outlets like TYT, like even Hassan Piker, they were critical of Kamala because they were saying, Kamala doesn't really stand in some senses for progressive issues, or beyond that, she's just not a good candidate. She's just incoherent. And by the way, they were massively criticized for that, right? They were getting dragged all over the place for, by the Democrat establishment, by those people for saying, you're dividing the side. But no, they were just saying what was obviously true. But meanwhile, you look at these people's content, they never offer that criticism, right? Whoever's in charge of the Democrat Party, they're never really going to go after. They're just going to say, oh, they're doing amazing, right? And that's something people ought to remember, is how they acted in the 2024 election. This tells you everything, right? So here's what I went on to say. It's funny how left-wing populism, quote unquote, they claim to be progressives, always reverts back to supporting the establishment, right? Many such cases, as we so often see, the champagne socialism, right? The Democrat establishment clearly bought you, whether that's directly or indirectly. And yes, even your own fans reading these people's comments are pointing this out on the Gaza issue, which you claim to be progressive and your side cares a lot about. That's your guys' issue, and you never really talk about it, right? So, people saying, hey, when's the last time you criticized Israel, all this stuff. So we basically get the picture here. Furthermore, it's worth noting as well that David Pakman is repeating a long trend here of his behavior. Because now what is he doing in the wake of this, right? He's calling it a hit piece, which, okay, I guess that's what you got to do. But then he's grifting, trying to demand that people give him money because he's being so persecuted here, because someone pointed out he's receiving a lot of money. And now he's saying, we're being attacked. Please, normal people in my audience, give us money. So here's what he's saying, right? After a recent Wired hit piece and now fully debunked, false claims started circulating. And sadly, some people chose to unsubscribe from my website membership, Substack, or unfollowed on YouTube. Guys, yes, I'm David Pakman. I have literally 3.3 million subscribers. I make a lot of money. But guys, 20, 30 people unsubscribed. This is the end of the world. So then he goes on, right? If you want to support what I do, please consider subscribing, right? Please, guys, give me money. Because, I'm going to grift off the fact that I'm losing here. Yes, don't you know I'm an independent progressive political show? Okay, let me be clear first of all that David Pakman, I don't know exactly how much money he makes, obviously, but I can tell you just looking at his YouTube channel and the views and all that stuff, off of YouTube alone, this guy's making at least $500K a year, probably more, right? But when you combine the Substack, his extra subscription stuff, obviously the money he's now taking from dark money, I would estimate he's making about at least $1 million a year. But after losing, I don't know, $30, $40 off of subscriptions, he's saying, oh, my audience, guys, see, he's still playing the facade. Still trying to argue the act. I'm an independent political show. We're under attack, guys. Please give me money, normal American watching this content, right? It's worth remembering, by the way, this is always what he does, because if you remember back to the 2024 election, he was doing the same exact thing because some people were unsubscribing because, hey, you lost viewers because the election and all is over and all that stuff. We lost. He's like crying about it. He's saying, we're losing viewers, guys. This year I might make 800,000 instead of 1 million. Please stop unsubscribing. Like, the guy is just so freaking over dramatic. But anyways, take a listen.
I'm going to tell you something that is terrifying me.
It's that mustache.
I always try to come here and put a positive face on everything, but there is something going on that is terrifying me. When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers compared to where we were last night. Now, the first thing I thought was, is this a glitch? We've been on YouTube for 15 years or something like that, and subscribers always just go up. They just never go down. They go up. Is something wrong with my channel? Is someone attacking my channel?
Well, something is wrong with your channel. Yeah. It's the misinformation.
I think it's the content.
Going on. So I started texting. And I texted Tyler Cohen. And I texted Tyler Cohen and Brian Cohen and Brian Tyler, all of them. I texted all of them. I texted Jesse Dollemore. I texted Luke Beasley and Farron Cousins and Sam Cedar. And every single one of our channels since last night is hemorrhaging subscribers.
Wow.
What is it
Saying,
that is
"Screw it,
going
I'm
on?"
out.
Here
Bro,
is
why would you
a
admit that?
graphic.
Look at this. Can
look
you
at this
pause this for 2
tiny-
seconds?
look
Look at this tiny little. Eep.
Right, so update, he barely actually lost any subscribers. It was a small blip. The guy was doing just fine, but again, being over dramatic and basically being a grifter, he's saying, no, please rally behind me. I'm a victim, guys. I'm just like this poor little guy who's an independent progressive political creator. And obviously that's not the case. And then now he's doing the same. He's saying, please give me money. It's insanity. But anyways, with that said, guys, there you have it. So there's kind of an update on the way content is going on the left and what is motivating some of these individuals. By the way, this is notable. I mean, look at these pictures, right? So as we explained to you, you have this independent progressive who's clearly like a Democrat establishment shill at this point. Here he is with Representative Jamie Raskin, you know. I think that's Maxwell Frost out of Florida and one of the other creators on this list, right? You get the idea. But yeah, all these people, constantly with Newsom, right? All these people are being compromised by the Democrat establishment, and they're claiming it's not happening, right? They're claiming, oh, we're these independent voices. No, you're not. You're not. And if you are, let's put it on the table then. Hey, this is my challenge then. To Pakman, to Cohen, all these characters, prove it wrong. Criticize the Democrat establishment directly. Okay? I don't just mean, oh, people need to fight harder. There's a issue of courage in the Democrat Party. No, I mean directly name the politicians you disagree with, name Hakeem Jeffries, name Gavin Newsom. Well, I guess you agree with Newsom now, but name him, right, for being the establishment pick, right, the repeat of the anointing, basically, of a candidate. Name Chuck Schumer. They won't do it. They won't do it because they're trying to stay close to these people, and that's essentially what is happening. And, you know, as someone who always was willing to criticize politicians on the right wing, I just don't understand this. Both parties have their surrogates, that's true. But at least the people call themselves surrogates or spokespeople or council leaders or all these things. Don't call yourself an independent progressive political show when you're not independent or progressive, okay? All right, with that said, though, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.